everybody. Thank you for joining us on a ConnectSMART webinar. It looks like we got started without audio, so can everyone hear us now? Okay, so sorry about that. So if you've been watching, I assure you that I will now actually talk about what I've been doing. So sorry about that. So let me just figure out where I am. Let's see. Okay, so typically we start with a slideshow, but I've gone ahead and just moved my agenda into the dedicated webinar page on our doc site, which is where all our webinars end up. So what this is it is basically just a dedicated page for today's webinar. We're going to end up having the recording will be embedded here. All the related content, anything we cover will be linked here. And you'll see that you can also browse other webinars. So if somebody misses today's webinar and they would like to watch it, you'll be able to grab it from here. If you have not seen some of our older ones, they're all here available. These are all new. This is not some graveyard of old videos. These are from within the last couple of months. So I highly recommend taking advantage of these to deep dive into some of the stuff we're going to cover today. But let me just hop back on into the one that we're working on. And so these are the topics that we're actually going to cover today. I'm going to run through some of the prerequisites, which are pretty straightforward, and then just walk through how to configure one of our predefined dashboards and the gadgets in terms of updating the parameters to filter the data, updating titles, swapping a gadget out on the dashboard, modifying the chart types, adding alerts to those gadgets, displaying it in full screen mode, or in a slideshow, and also just the dashboard appearance, so color schemes, styles, themes, things like that. I'm going to show you how to make those changes. And the reason I have creating a new dashboard from scratch after all of that is because when you create a new dashboard from scratch, there's not a lot to see or to look at. So understanding kind of some of the concepts behind modifying the gadgets and things once they're published will make a lot more sense when we go and actually just create one from scratch. Because then when we start a new gadget, it'll all just sort of flow together a little better for you. So that's why we are going to do that second and not first. But then we'll set up a slideshow with both those dashboards, and I will show you how to customize the URL for the dashboard so that you can share it with your team members and you can have it already set to the right motif, the right color scheme in full screen only mode. Then you don't have to worry about everybody looking at their dashboards in completely different motifs and themes and complaining that they don't look right. So that's just one way to kind of streamline and keep stuff sort of universal throughout the organization if you share the URL with people already configured instead of expecting them to open it up, put it in full screen, pick the right style, and so on. So these are the topics we are going to be running through, and you are welcome to follow along on the docs site at docs.connectsmart.com. I'm going to go ahead and scoot this off to the side so that I can see. And here is my just the home page of ConnectSMART. So this is where I can access my gadget creator and my dashboard viewer. The gadget creator is where I go and create and publish new gadgets. My dashboard viewer is where I go to configure dashboards and fill them up with gadgets that we've already published in the gadget creator. So I mentioned that I'm going to actually be configuring a predefined dashboard first. So I'll show you first off how we do that. I'm going to go to docs.connectsmart.com. I'm going to go to our catalog of dashboards. And I am going to grab, you know what? I have already grabbed the other dashboard, so I'll just pick a new one. That way I don't have to worry about things with the same names everywhere. And let's see. Let's delete some of the existing gadgets that are floating around. There we go. All right. So these instructions, we actually did a webinar on this last week. So this actually explains everything you need to know about how these dashboards work, how you can add them, the prerequisites. You will need licensing if you don't already have your subscription updated to include these. It's not an additional fee. We just need to make sure that you're licensed for this platform, and then shows you how to download, where to put them, the path you should dump them into, and shows you how to access them and make changes to them. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And if I don't know why we are pinning that, sorry about that. We are not adding that to Pinterest. And just so you can see, I'm going to just grab this path here, pop open my downloads, and I want to extract these guys to my published folder, which I just copied from that doc site. Ta-da! All right, so that's where I want that. And I want service 1, the dashboard. That's fine, open in the folder. Okay, well, whatever. There we go. All right, so I have service 1, which I already had a copy of, so let me just yank that out in a moment. Let's see. So I'm going to go to C, iNet, to dashboards, pop that in. It's going to get rid of this since those gadgets are looking for a dashboard called Service 1. So what I've done right now is I've just grabbed an existing dashboard, existing gadgets, popped them into my folders where I would expect to see them. That all went red because I just deleted that dashboard, so bear with me. All right, so here's my new one that I just grabbed. Let me delete this one since it's just going to show up here. But that's all red just because I deleted the gadgets associated with that dashboard. It's nothing to be alarmed by. All right, so here is that dashboard that we just grabbed from the website. And at the most basic, I'm going to go ahead and put this in edit mode by selecting the edit icon here. And I will go ahead and select this guide to get to my parameters. And so first on our agenda is updating parameters to filter data. And that's all these really do is that's where I would go to select a board name, filter down to member, service type, things like that. So in my case, I would like to filter down to the ConnectSMART help desk. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab that guy. And you'll see the number has changed. So my unassigned, let's go ahead and put that on the ConnectSMART help desk as well. So you'll see my numbers are updating real time. So my tickets by priority, I also have here. I'm going to put that on the ConnectSMART help desk. Let me show you one thing after that updates. All right, so we've got critical, high, and low. We do have an option to exclude things. I can't exclude it here. So here I could actually filter down and select the only ones I cared about. But let's say I had a bunch and I only wanted to exclude one. I can actually come back over to my gadget creator, navigate to that published gadget, which was, of course, I have forgotten already the name of which one I was changing. It's tickets by priority. All right, so I'm going to go to tickets by priority. And my priority. I'm going to drop the lows out. So see how that filters me down just to low. And that gives me everything that's not. So if I want to use the exclude feature, I am going to have to bounce on over into the gadget creator that's not exposed at the dashboard. So just keep that in mind. If you've got a ton of boards, say, that you want to include and you just want to exclude one, you can always bounce back over to the creator and use that exclude feature to save yourself just a little bit of time. Well, my lovely assistant Gail is telling me that we have a question. So Gail, take it away.
This is from Jeff, and it's any suggestions on the best way to deal with child tickets being included in some of the gadgets?
Jeff, you will see in the older gadgets that there is a child, there's a feature to include and exclude child tickets. On a lot of the newer ones, they're excluded by default, except for certain ones where they're indicated otherwise. So anything that's looking at SLA times, things like that, is already going to be excluding child tickets by default. So, and that's just because those are typically going to be dumped into a child ticket status. So we've got gadgets that are looking for the orphans, and you wouldn't want the child tickets typically to factor into your SLA reporting. So you'll see the newer ones are already doing it by default, and you'll see where they're not, that there is an option in the parameters to go ahead and include or exclude child tickets. Does that answer that question for you? Because I know you're seeing some of the older ones that are in the ConnectWise on-prem catalog. They do have that feature to include or exclude, but these are actually doing it by default automatically. Okay. All right, so if you have any more questions like that, definitely pop them into the chat or raise your hand, and you can have the mic and speak for yourself. But if you don't have a mic handy, you can always just type into the chat as well. So thank you, Jeff. That is a good question. So, all righty, so that was the exclude feature. Also, this is Dashboards 101, so if you're not familiar with this, if you've made it this far, I just want to highlight that we do have drill downs. So all of these you are able to drill down into, and so you would expect to go in and be able to see those. You'll see this includes closed, and that is because this is looking for tickets that were entered today, not tickets that are open, so we will see closed. But you'll also see inside some of the drill downs under tickets and activities and other record types, there will be a URL or a, oh, you know what? I just changed out my config, and we are going to yell at David Ortiz because it's not taking me to the right ConnectWise URL, so bear with me there. This will, if you're configured, if you have not been swapping out your configuration record 40 times a day, you will have your ConnectWise base URL in place, and clicking this will take you directly into the ConnectWise application in the browser. You'll see mine is back to the default because of some shenanigans we were doing earlier to play around with some other things. But I assure you that works. This will take you to your ConnectWise instance. And if it does not, let us know, because it's definitely just a URL setting in your configuration. And the vast majority of you are already set up that way, if not all of you. Just wanted to highlight that if anybody did make it this far, if this is the first time you've ever even heard of ConnectSMART, clicking these, you are going to get that drill down that's going to show you what we're looking for here. So let me go ahead and jump to the parameters again. So those parameters allow us to filter, and then I popped back over to the gadget creator to show you where you can exclude things if need be. Similar to the service boards, you've got service type, you've got some other things like subtypes, urgency, location, priority, business unit for service tickets, and you'll see parameters that are more specific to other record types, like say selecting the members that you want to include on an hours by tech chart, something like that. Which I did show you in the silent movie version of this webinar at the very beginning. So if you go back, you'll see where I changed out the member IDs and some hours by tech gadgets. The titles that we have here, we've made them available so you don't have to go back to the gadget creator to modify these. So if entered today is not descriptive enough for you, you can always change it to tickets entered today. If you give it a moment, it will come back around and get updated. Give it a second. Perhaps have I grabbed a buggy one? Let's see. All right, so I'm going to double check this one and make sure this one is updated because it looks like it's not taking our title overrides. But you'll see here the tickets used to say new, now it says new tickets. I'll switch it back. So it jumps back. This is the default that we've got entered just kind of as it at its base level, this gadget. And if I want to indicate that this is new tickets, I can do that. I can add some additional info at the bottom showing help desk only, if that's the case. If that's not the case, obviously that would be a very useless bottom title, but whatever's descriptive enough for your team. So if new is sufficient for you guys, that might be all you need. You'll see some others where, like say, for instance, on the entered, if we know everything is going to be today, you might want to just drop it down to entered or resolved and so on. Similarly, like say in progress, change that to work in progress, completed. You know, for us, we care about, this one is actually looking for a status of completed to find things that are not closed yet. So we could even call it resolved, not closed. And see how that updates there. So that's how you would actually just update the titles. And if you're happy with what they come out of the box with, you don't have to do that. It's just this is a quick way to modify those titles on the dashboard without having to bounce back into the gadget creator. Just makes it a little quicker for you to update things. Let's see, so I'm going to go ahead and I did this in the silent mode earlier, but so tickets by priority. This is a bar chart right now. If we wanted to change this and view it as a pie chart, it's very simple to do, but this does require us to go back to our gadget creator, which you can access here. Open it in a new tab. I already did have it open, so close that one. So you're going to go to My Organizations Gadgets, Published. In that case, that is a Service 1 gadget. That is Open Tickets by Priority. I'm going to edit that. And I'm going to go to Properties, and the Gallery option is where I go to change my chart types. So that's the donut. Here is my pie chart. If I want to make that a vertical bar, we can do that. So I'm going to actually make that one a donut for now. And while we're in here, you can actually go ahead and make that a 3D donut if you are so inclined. I am not, so I'm going to change it back. But it is an option. You do have these other options here to go and play around with some of the appearance things. So if you do have 3D on and you've got it rotated, you can go and actually set angles that will change things. I am not a fan of the 3D rotated, on that one anyway. There are some instances where I am. Just refreshing here will get the donut to show up instead of the bar chart. So there we go. That's my tickets by priority. So anything that you've got published on the dashboard, you can always come back to the gadget creator, modify it on the fly, and just a quick refresh, it'll show up on the dashboard for whoever's viewing it. Now I've got, let's see, so for my entered today, let's do unassigned. So I'm going to show you how to add alerts to a gadget. And that includes audible and visual alerts. So for instance, these guys are all showing as the same, right? I can't tell which of these requires more of my attention than another, just looking at my dashboard right now. But let's say that unassigned is a big deal. I don't want to see a bunch of unassigned tickets. This shouldn't be this high. It's way too many. I'm going to actually go to my gadget creator. I'm going to go back just like I found the other one. I'm going to go to my published, service 1. I'm going to look for my unassigned tickets, which are here, service 1, unassigned tickets. I'm going to edit that. And going right back to that area we just were in with the properties, the parameters, and alerts. So alerts are where we can go ahead and create those. So right now I know that my unassigned is showing a 44. So I'm going to go ahead and select my gadget value. And it's going to be greater than 40. So if it's over 40, I'm going to want my gadget to show me a warning. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and preview that. All right, so see how this is now orange? Very good, very good. I'm going to go ahead and add an audible alert as well. Is greater than, we'll do the same thing, of 40. Only this time we're going to have it play a sad trombone. Ta-da! All right, so you may be able to hear this. Let me plug my headphones real quick, since it won't play through the speakers, but all right, let's go back to the dashboard. I'm not sure you guys can hear. So I'm refreshing. You'll see this guy turn orange. I think we heard that. Okay. All right, so Gail informs me that we have a question, so I will let her take the reins.
Okay, this question is from Nathan. Can the colors be altered?
Right now, it's just the built-in colors, so that red, green, and so on. You can decide what those mean to you. I'm sure we could probably alter them, but that would be something that we'd have to do as pro services, just because it'd be some customization in the back end. So technically it's possible, but right now it's just the ones that are built in. So we do have some neutral and other colors as well, though, so it's not just kind of like good and bad. Let's see. So there's a neutral as well. So you're not stuck with just kind of these more inflammatory, like, it's bad. But it is kind of, it's just these at the moment. But if it's really critical to you, I mean, we've got folks who, I'm going to turn that off right now so that we don't hear that for the next 30 minutes. Let's see. That's this one. Do you need? There we go. All right, so I've left my visual alert, but I have gone ahead and removed that audible alert just so we're not hearing that over and over and over again. All right. Now we've got, so from viewing the dashboard, we can actually go ahead and view it in full screen without all of this stuff around it. And we've got that right here. This is actually also allowing us to do a slideshow. So this is one way to view it in full screen, but this is, let me go ahead and start that. All right, so it's going to go ahead and pop this out into full screen, get rid of everything around it except for the title. So this is typically how folks want to display it when they're showing it on a TV somewhere on the wall. They don't necessarily want all that other junk around it. Now, if you were to hit just F11 inside of it, you get pretty close to that, but you still have some stuff around it. So that's where that built-in full screen feature is going to kind of take care of that for you. And let me F11 back out of that. Okay. So you know what? I was supposed to show you how to swap out a gadget, so I will do that next. So let's take off this one. Let's get rid of resolve not closed. So if I am pretty happy with my dashboard in general, but I want to just go ahead and replace something out of it, I've now left myself a hole here. I can go grab a new one. Let's do open tickets. And we will do, I don't think I had orphans, right? Yeah, we'll do orphans. So orphans is looking for tickets that are child tickets and are not in a child ticket status, and vice versa, where they are in a child ticket status and not actually a child ticket. And the reason you care about this is because that'll actually control your SLA clock. So when you dump something to a child ticket status, it should stop the SLA clock and keep you from having a bunch of SLA violations on child tickets without having to go and exclude them manually. Keeps them from triggering the ConnectWise stuff. All right, so I need to probably publish this guy. This is just a random one. So to get that on here, just drag it into place. And this is one of my custom ones, so we don't have a title added to it yet. But to remove that top file name there. You just go here to the properties and delete it from there. Now from a layout standpoint, if I wanted to add an entire new row or column, I can just drag a guy right in here in the middle, but I need to make room here. Same way, I'm just going to go ahead and drag that out of there. So if I needed to make space to add more stuff, I can just pop it in wherever I want it. If I were to put it over here, it'll go ahead and create a whole new column without stretching anything over. And if I were to just double click, it's actually going to give me a whole new row down at the bottom. So you can definitely take what we've started with and add on to it, or if you like it as is, you are welcome to keep it that way. Just going to scoot these guys. Okay. There we go. Give that a second to save. There we go. So it's just rewriting the whole dashboard there and make sure we've got all our stuff in place. Okay, so now if we wanted to add a bunch more stuff, we could. We could certainly delete things. If you guys missed that, deleting stuff is pretty straightforward. Of course, if you click it, you're going to get your drill down. Just go ahead and delete it. Look what I've done now. See? All right, so that I just shrunk, and this used to take up 2 rows. So to get it to let me lay it out a little differently, I'm going to create a new row down here. And there we go. So this is much, much easier to lay out than some older versions, but I just want to warn everybody that we do have some stuff in the works that is going to make this even more flexible. So you'll still have the ability for it to kind of auto-arrange things for you, so you're not going back to a world where you're arranging all the individual gadgets by themselves. But instead of having to go and add that row, you'll basically be able just to drag things anywhere you want, and it'll arrange stuff for you. So it'll be pretty cool. So stick around, and we'll be covering that, I'm sure, in a new webinar here once that's out in a new build. So let's see, we have done alerts, we have done full screen, we have changed parameters and titles. We have not covered dashboard appearance with the styles and the themes. So if you take a look at the dashboard we're looking at now, it is a black background. We've got a gray border around them. The default text color is red. But if that's not really doing it for you, right here under your logged in username, you've got a whole menu of styles, themes, and alert targets. So this, keep in mind, is going to be tied back to this gadget over here where we've got an alert in place. So we've got our classic stuff, which is the old LED kind of gauge. That just looks like that sort of old-fashioned one that we had there. And that's in a dark or a default. So if we switch that to black, what it'll actually do is drop out those borders. The exception of that one, that's specifically because it's marked here. Okay, so I'm just playing with the alert targets there, but just so it doesn't keep showing borders when we have motifs without borders. So the modern UI is a little more modern, clearly, but this one is just kind of like this, and the difference between that and the thin is mostly this is just controlling the values here, so that just makes the values a little bigger, a little cleaner, not that fat kind of bold font. So I'm going to leave it in thin for the moment, and you've got your themes here which control the actual color scheme. So professional is a lighter one. And we have the background selected, which is why this is not changing. It's going to stay orange the whole time. Lilac is another light one. Just has more of a purple kind of feel to it. Light is another option you've got there. Slightly different color scheme for your charts, darker text. We've got high contrast, which is my favorite because I am a boring, boring person who loves the gray. And default's what we were in originally. That's going to keep everything at the red. You've got classic. So there's a lot of overlap between them. So just find the one that works for you and go ahead and use that one. We can do custom ones for you. So if you do have an overwhelming desire to have a custom color scheme, let us know. We can make one for you. It's just these are the ones that are currently packaged up. So we kind of glossed over the alert targets as well. So right now, you'll see we've got the background selected. If I change the value, it's actually going to change the text to orange. It'll disappear. You'll have some trouble seeing it since I've got my border that way. So that's kind of no bueno. So we're going to want to leave that how it is. And let's say we take the background off, but set it to mark the border. And come on. Go ahead and update that. Sometimes it can be a little finicky, just depending on the browser that we're using and how it's rendering images. You may have to select it once or twice. Come on, border. There we go. Okay, so this is my preferred way to do it, is with the border and the value. I find it a little less busy than having the entire face of the gadget turned to orange. You're going to have to just decide in your particular use case what makes the most sense for you and what's not going to give your dispatcher and engineers fits to look at. But you do have those three different options you can mix and match and combine to control how your alerts are presented. Okay, so that is most of our things. So let's see. So I just want to touch on some of the options that are in here. So those same parameters, like I said, they're going to be in here, available from the gadget, parameters. All right, so it looks like someone just connected to my machine and stole my mouse. Thank you, Dortis. So he is, apparently we have been joined by Dortis. All right, so if you want to come through and make some additional changes, you can control your off-digit transparency. You can set that to 0. In this case, it's not going to look very exciting because we don't have value padding and stuff in place. If we wanted to change our value format, though, to currency, we would do that through this. And similarly, if we were looking at, say, a count of hours and it was showing us whole numbers and we wanted to see decimal places, we would select one with decimal places. Similarly, percentages. It's going to take that value, turn it into a percent. Oh, very nice. And the category. So as I was coming back into the gadget creator, I'm going to just open up a new tab for that. And I'm trying to find my gadgets to modify them. You'll see these are in the category called Service 1. That just comes from right here. So if I were to change that to Webinar category, you'll see a new category appear immediately called Webinar category. So it won't force you to use an existing category for better or for worse. So if you have a typo, you're going to end up with multiple categories. But if you want to create stuff on the fly, it's very simple. You don't have to go and get that entered somewhere else to be able to use it. Okay, so Service 1. And where you'll see that on the dashboard level, come back over here to the Edit mode and hover here. You will see the, whoops, I'm sorry, you are not going to see a category here. This is actually going to show you subfolders that it's in. So you'll see that this is in the Service 1 Gadgets subfolder where we pulled it in. All right, so the categories are over here. There you go. So if we had left that webinar category, it would show as another category here as well to go select gadgets and publish them. So for the gauges, you are not going to see a ton more than that going on. They're pretty straightforward, but if you needed to change your description, you can. So if you need to make it slightly different to indicate that you've selected a certain board, like ConnectSMART Help Desk Only, you can certainly do that. And you can actually change your refresh interval. So if you're looking for tickets that you need to see more often, you may want to set that more to 5 minutes or even a minute if it's super, super critical. But if it's not, I would suggest leaving it out at a minute just so you're not taxing your database by querying it over and over and over again. Most of these are going to be pretty straightforward and not too bad in terms of performance, but some of the metrics are definitely not designed for a 1-minute refresh. And you'll see them defaulted to a longer refresh. Things like agreement trends, invoicing, things like that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and bounce out of here. So without further ado, I will go ahead and show you a real quick demo of how to make a new dashboard. And I think I might have already gone too far. Let's get back to a motif where you can see the buttons. Okay. So to make a new one, you're just going to click the new icon. You're going to name it anything you want. Today's webinar Dashboards 101. Your organization versus personal, it's going to show me, if I put it in personal, it's going to save it in the JCoffee folder, so it's only visible to myself and administrators. If I put it in organization, it'll be visible to other folks who have rights to view dashboards for a team. So if I want to make a new dashboard, I've got these gadgets already available, but let's say I didn't have these dashboards here, or not these dashboards, these gadgets here, because these gadgets were published for use with the other dashboards. So I'll go make a couple new ones. Let's say I want to report on, let's see what I have nearby. I will do, let's see. Let's do trends. The other one's looking mostly at open stuff. Let's take a look at some trends. So let's see, average ticket time, average actual elapsed hours at resolution. And that's just giving you the actual time to resolution without factoring in waiting and business hours. So it's going to give you a kind of a true picture of how long a customer might have actually felt they were waiting, regardless of whether or not things were in a legitimate waiting status. So kind of a complementary gadget to that is the average hours waiting. All right, so I've got 3. And so those will dump right immediately to the unpublished folder. So before we were going to publish to go and see the stuff that was already out there. These are here for staging purposes. So we'd edit it, make any changes that we wanted to, and we would publish it. I'm going to go ahead and select the boards here instead of at the dashboard. And publish that one. And we will publish this guy as well. Oh, made that one mad. Good stuff. All right, I will come back to that one, grab a different one. Go find out why. I'm also working with some gadgets that are in different stages of testing, so bear with me. Let's do tickets entered. So I have published my 3 gadgets, which are under the service trends category. Since that's distinct from the other one, I'm not going to worry about changing it. I would recommend that if you are publishing gadgets for use on a specific board, that you name them as such, so you can keep them straight when you're potentially working in your published folder where you've got all your gadgets together. So normally I would recategorize these as something like dashboard 2 or whatever I was going to call it. But since I can easily tell them apart, I'm just going to grab them. So these are now here where they were not before. Just quick double click, double click, double click, and they're going to just dump them on one row at a time. I'm going to bounce over here, hide my file names. And let's see, we will do this, and I'm going to bounce this one actually to the top, make this one the bigger one. And that is how I would go and make a brand new dashboard, and I would just continue publishing gadgets or grabbing them from over here. So if I wanted to see, let's see, average SLA resolution past X days. So this one, let's change this to 30. And ConnectSMART Help Desk. What am I making you mad? Wrong one, there we go. All right, I will dig into this one, which was set just fine on the other one, but is getting mad at me. Like I said, I've been swapping my config out today, so I am not working with a clean, fresh, lovely install, and I apologize. Okay, so I went ahead and grabbed another one from over there, popped it in here, and if I were to add additional ones, I can always just pop it up on the top, move them around, bounce them in the middle. So the layout is going to continuously adjust. If you wanted to customize these, you can drag these around. Typically, that's not going to result in something that looks really great, so people don't, but it is an option. And if you find yourself having done that and don't like it and want it to go back to auto, just come on up here, double click, and it will take care of that for you. So all is not lost. You don't have to recreate the thing. Just double click and it'll revert back to the defaults. Similarly, if I go ahead and start moving stuff around, it's going to lose my rows or my columns and make them full screen like that. Do we have any questions yet at this point? Is there anything I can revisit or cover for anyone before I move on to the URLs, the URL customization? All right, Gail says nothing. So if you change your mind, just yell and we will stop. I'm just going to go ahead and touch on the URL customizations that we have. So let me go back to, okay. All right, so from the dashboard, Dashboards 101 webinar page, I've got it linked here actually, the dashboard URL tips and tricks. So these are going to show you here some things you can pop into the URL of your dashboard. So if we go and make some of those changes up here, I can then share my dashboard with Gail, and she doesn't have to set it to be in full screen mode or pick the right motif or style and theme. And she can just open it from a bookmark, make a shortcut to open it at startup, any of those things. So this is where we would set the style, and that would just get popped in after dashboard question mark. So this would be style equals thin n Okay. Ooh, whoopsie-daisy. Here we go. All right, so just remember that if we go ahead and set the style spelled properly. All right, so that's set. I'm going to copy that URL, and I can change it to something else. And my URL, as long as I'm opening up the URL, it doesn't matter where I was before. So if I were to send this to, say, Gail, and Gail had open a dashboard in Classic and black like this with this whole kind of like LED thing going on, all we got to do is, there we go. It's going to take us over to thin and override that Classic stuff. So now dashboard, same thing with theme. I'm going to skip over it for time since I did waste 20 minutes of everyone's time doing a silent webinar. But dashboard only is actually going to get us into that full screen mode. So we can pop this in right here. And so without having to go and navigate through any of the buttons to get to full screen or hit F11, that will actually take care of that for you. So I would recommend going ahead and configuring it exactly how you want it to be displayed. And then if you've got it up on TVs or somewhere, you can actually go ahead and create a startup shortcut, which I have linked here. So how do I auto launch my dashboard at startup? So follow these tricks, but then use the URL tips and tricks to get your URL exactly how you want it. And then you can set up a shortcut to always launch it at startup. So I have touched on everything I had on my agenda today, and if I've got any questions, I can take those now, or if anybody would like to see anything demonstrated, we can certainly tackle that. Looks like I might have worn you guys out. So I am going to go ahead and wrap up. It is not a speak now or forever hold your peace thing. So if you think of 20 questions as soon as we wrap up here, go ahead and send them on to support@connectsmart.com. And we will either point you to the associated documents or get you a good answer and get it documented. So you guys have been great. Sorry about the 20 minutes of silence. And thank you so much. And I hope we see you on next week's webinar. Bye-bye.